Hello, I'm Helen Joyce, the Economist's Britain editor, and here with me today I have Jeff Simmons, who's President and Chief Executive of Elanco Animal Health. Now, we're going to talk about some subjects that, like, if it's an idiot's guide you wanted, we could go in on aren't you not meant to eat animals if you care about the climate? But we're going to go past that, and Jeff is going to explain to me why that sort of 101, the link between climate change and animals is don't eat them, switch away from animals. He's going to tell us why that's wrong. Jeff.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you to The Economist for the opportunity. Yeah, I just had a privilege recently to have more than 50% of all the meat, milk, eggs, and fish, animal protein, coming together in a forum and discussing this topic. And it is of high interest and high relevance. And I believe there's a high regard of responsibility from our industry. I've spent 32 years across borders, across all of those segments: meat, milk, egg, fish, from pork, beef, dairy, chicken, salmon, as you say it. Listen, the next 9 years have never been more pivotal than right now. By 2030, a lot has to happen, even stated by the United Nations. First of all, let's just start with the facts. 30% of all the people today are not getting enough nutrition, whether that's hunger or not able to get the calories and the right calories. Another 30% on top of that are getting the wrong nutrition. So I say it's from hunger to obesity. You know this. We represent animal protein, about 18% of total calories consumed, and over 40% of the protein consumed. We are predicted by the FAO, looking ahead at 60 million metric tons, are going to go to 90 million metric tons. So, Helen, I'm sticking with the facts to say the world has a nutrition challenge in the next 9 years to feed 2 billion more people and to improve nutrition. And we are a big part of this, as actually carbs are coming down in Western diets and other diets, and protein needs are going up. So this is a reality. And look, and the consumption of meat continues to grow globally because it not only provides this nutrition, but taste, cost, nutrition continue to drive consumer preference going forward. At the same time, in the next 9 years, we got to cool the planet. What's very interesting is there's two kinds of gases in a very simplified way. There's carbon and a stock gas, and then a flow gas called methane. We impact and can impact methane more than anyone else through the raising of animals, through the health of animals, from the land to inside the animal to what, the outside of the animal to actually in the value chain. And so we believe in 9 years we can cool the planet. In this conference, we showed producers that are doing it today, that are actually carbon neutral to actually carbon, greenhouse gas even positive. And most all the major companies in this industry have made commitments 2030, 2040 to be net zero or to be carbon neutral. So look, the facts are the facts, which is the world wants better nutrition and needs it. Animal protein is a big part of that. And number two is we can cool the planet in 9 years by, production of animals done the right way to actually lower. And remember, 60% of this earth that we don't use is actually used by animals to turn that wasteland into actual protein and calories to need to feed this additional 2 billion people as well. So a great opportunity. And this industry's done it before. I mean, we've helped do things from, take salmonella in the UK, drop it 50% just in the last decade. So we've had decade challenges before, and we look forward to this opportunity.
So, I mean, someone like me who isn't in the industry is aware of the methane issue as being a major issue in animal husbandry. Is it a technical fix? Can you explain to someone in sort of 90 seconds who isn't in the industry what you're talking about?
Yeah, so let's just take it. I always say there's 4 channels to this of how to do this. And this is when it comes back to even unlocking opportunities from husbandry to innovation. First, it's on the land. So in the land, how do we do more no-till? Remember that a good share of all the grains in the world are fed to animals to produce protein that is consumed by people. So when you take a no-till, what you're doing is you're sequestering that credits and that carbon, and you're able to lock that in. 2, an area that I'm in animal health is actually how do we actually reduce the methane, the ammonia inside the animal. So how do you increase actually turning energy to protein, and actually in the ruminant of a cow that actually, produces methane? How do you reduce it? And there's technologies that are being introduced today, that are, very consumer friendly technologies that will reduce ammonia, methane that is coming out of the animal, produced in the animal. Then what do you do with the waste, the third area that comes out of the animal? And that can be done everything from biodigesters to dairy farms today, to where they're actually putting manure in digesters, using that, creating gas, and actually producing and selling gas to another industry. I was on a dairy 3 weeks ago with major protein players. It was not just a carbon neutral, a carbon positive. He was actually making more money off from the credits coming from other industries by the reduction than he is actually off the milk from his cows. So this is being done today, and economics matter. And then the last is actually the utilization of less utilities by leveraging some of these credits, or actually partnering and syncing with other industries that need to bring their credits down. So look, you cannot connect calories and climate with not having animals in the center. We can impact both of them, trying to change diets, change the way people eat. Actually, when you look at the facts, number one, consumers aren't going that way. And number two, that is not the way that will impact the climate in 9 years.
So, what about the meat substitutes, these ways of turning proteins directly into things that people feel and that taste like meat and so on? I mean, should we not just be going that direction because it's more efficient without having the animal in the middle?
Yeah. So first I start with facts, and then we can go to that. I think there's no question protein is the hottest food segment today. Why? We know that places that it's directly related, and that if you look at that FAO United Nations going from 60 million metric tons to 90 million metric tons of animal protein, that's driven a lot by GDP growth. So people that can move off from plant-based diets are moving to animal-based diets. That is happening. And that's been happening the last 5 years. It's going to happen a lot in the next decade. I'm not talking a long time. There's not many industries growing that fast. So that's factual, and you can see this happening. But look, an alternative protein is an option, but an alternative protein does not bring better nutrition. There's more ingredients in it than animal protein. It does not bring better calories or conversion in any way. When you study the actual footprint and look at all the industries that are needed to actually produce it, it actually does not bring that. It's definitely not a cost option. And then when you step back and look at the industry, we're about a $90 billion industry. Thinking through the economist lens, that's less than $1 billion industry. If we are going to impact this in the next 9 years, given consumer preference, given our impact on methane, no, it starts in the animal. And this is where we can actually impact it. You will not eat your way out of this, and consumer preference is showing it is not trending at all that way.
So
We
what
have 9
about
years, Ellen, as you know.
yeah,
9 years
yeah.
is we've got to make sure this is a good, sustainable, material business model, and environmental and consumer. And those three segments come together, and innovation will be created to help make this happen.
So in this in these various sessions, a lot of people are talking very interestingly about their supply chains, going up and down them, and also partnering with the people in other parts of their supply chains to help them to meet their sustainability goals. And we've heard about some extraordinary, information flows. So tell me a bit about that. How are you telling the people who buy your products what benefits they're getting out of the work that you're doing, and also how is your industry buying products in a way that's sustainable?
We have a very sophisticated industry from smallholder farmers in Africa that are integrated into a supply chain all the way to larger companies in every major, agricultural country. So what I first would say is it starts with commitments. Most every single major animal protein company has made a commitment that they're going to be to net zero, or they're going to be, moving and reducing their carbon. And now all the supply chain players are going to be doing this as well. So number one is we're on a path. We've not only made commitments, we have roadmaps, and there's innovation. Partnership is one of the greatest opportunities that our industry has with other industries, because we are going to be able to reduce greenhouse gases. I think more significantly than other industries. So the syncing, the partnering is going to be important. In addition, companies like Elanco, what do? We create animal health products, vaccines, nutritionals, other things to make the animal healthy. We've made a commitment in this decade to reduce emissions by 21 million tons. And we're going to do that by making animals healthier, more efficient, and we're going to actually have metrics to do that. The second thing is we've got one of the largest databases to actually track. Tracking is going to be essential, as you know, in being able to see and understand and capture the progress that's being made. And we've got a portfolio today in most species, 5 to 10% reduction in footprint. How do we turn that into 15% reduction in footprint? So look, I think I would want to emphasize this industry, the animal agriculture industry, has made commitments in this decade to have a significant impact. 2, we're open to partnering. And I could point to many examples around the world where the partnering is already happening with the energy industry, other industries, to actually create economic and environmental gains. And I think third is the value chain is becoming, I think, driven by innovation and metrics. This is the next opportunity, I believe, for our industry, the next era of opportunity.
So a lot of the companies that we've talked to, a lot of it has been about their built footprint. But I think for you, probably it's more about transport as being the sort of the big opportunity that's sort of secondary to your main product. Am I right, or is something else?
Yeah, transport is definitely a piece of it. But actually, when you think about the impact that the animal can have, by reduction, we have significantly reduced the footprint. If you look at just the last 30 years in the dairy industry, we've more than half the footprint has been reduced. So to me, yes, transport is a key, but I think the actual impact on the gas itself within the animal is going to be the significant game changer. And watch, before the end of this decade, there'll be many producers all over the world that will actually be close to or at net zero, truly, cattle operations like the one I was at, one of the largest dairies in the US, and actually sinking and using that carbon credit to actually create an economic opportunity that will be as significant as the protein itself. That's what will drive change much more significantly than change in a diet or looking to try to adjust removal of livestock. That will
That's
not
really
move the
interesting.
needle, and it will not. Yep.
So, and then my last question, I'd like to just get you to talk a bit about this issue of feeding people who are either poorly nourished or undernourished.
Yeah.
Because normally when you want to try to limit something, well, you want to raise the cost of it, you want there to be less of it. But I mean, there's simultaneously this enormously important goal of feeding people more and better. So how do we do both of those things at the same time?
Yeah. Well, first of all, an amazing question and one that's really important. There's an interdependency on calories and climate. If there's only one message remembered from this talk, is you cannot exclude one from the other. And the United Nations, I think, has set a goal to stabilize, to get to how do we even get to zero hunger and move to a cooling of the climate by 2030. That vision is possible, but it's going to be critical to make sure they're connected. So to feed the world, we have to look at what's most important. Surveys in my 30 years in this, in this industry, we have learned taste, cost, and nutrition drive the eating habits from Africa to Seattle. And so the point in this is let's keep that in mind. And I believe that meat, milk, eggs, fish are absolutely critical to the continent of Africa, all the way to the modern Western cities in this world. So it impacts the cognitive skills of young kids in the first 1,000 days, to the obesity problem that we have across the globe, and global consumers are voting with what they want, and you see that in the trends. More red meat has been eaten in the last 2 years in this world than any time in the history of man, and we're predicted to grow over 50% in the next 10 years. Why? It's good for your diet, it's good for the nutrition, it's good for the cognitive skills, and it's desired by people. So we can't exclude it. We need to figure out how to turn it into opportunity. And I think that's the most important point that I'd like to make. Thank you.
Oh, Jeffrey, thank you so much for coming and talking to us. That's Jeff Simmons, who's President and Chief Executive of Elanco Animal Health. And thank you to our audience for listening too. So do stay with us. The next session is going to start shortly.